The Hells Angels biker watched the little girl uncover a rusted hatch in the desert floor, and the vault beneath rewrote history. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. The scorching desert heat was a constant companion as Jake, a hardened Hells Angels biker, cruised along the lonely highway. His Harley-Davidson roared beneath him, its chrome pipes sending a thunderous echo through the empty desert. With his leather jacket and patches that struck fear into anyone who crossed his path, Jake was a man who was always on the move. Yet, that day was different. His sharp eyes noticed a small figure up ahead, a little girl, no older than 7, with dirt-streaked clothes and eyes full of determination. She was crouched low to the ground, her tiny hands digging in the sandy desert floor. Curious, Jake slowed his bike, the engine's growl fading into the background as he approached. The girl was relentless, as if she had a mission to complete. She paused for a moment, her fingers brushing against something hard. With a grunt, she pulled at the object, revealing a rusty hatch hidden beneath the sand. It was old, its edges worn and covered in dirt, but there was no mistaking it. This hatch had been buried for a long time. Jake's heart raced with excitement and suspicion. He had seen a lot in his years as a biker, but he had never seen anything like this before. The little girl, with all her might, yanked at the hatch again, her face scrunching in concentration. Jake's instincts kicked in. He wasn't sure if she knew what she had uncovered, but he did. There was something powerful hidden beneath that hatch, and he wasn't going to let a young girl open it without understanding the consequences. Just as the hatch finally gave way with a creak, the girl looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. "Do you think it's treasure?" she asked, her voice filled with hope. Jake's eyes narrowed, but his voice softened. "I don't know, kid, but whatever it is, it's dangerous to dig around without knowing what's inside." But the girl wasn't deterred. She crawled through the hatch, disappearing into the unknown, and Jake, against his better judgment, followed. The air inside was cool, a stark contrast to the blistering heat above ground. As Jake crawled deeper, he realized that the walls of the hidden tunnel were lined with strange markings, symbols he couldn't understand. There was an eerie stillness in the air, as if the tunnel had been forgotten by time itself. The little girl, with her curiosity and fearlessness, had led him into a place that might just rewrite everything he knew. But what exactly was down here? That was the question that haunted Jake as he crawled behind her, his heart pounding with every step. The deeper they went, the more he realized that this was no ordinary find. This hatch was not a random discovery. It was part of something much bigger, something that could change the course of history forever. And as the darkened tunnel stretched ahead of them, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. I watched as the little girl scrambled further into the darkness of the tunnel, her small frame vanishing into the unknown. I hesitated, then followed. The air was cool and damp, a stark contrast to the searing desert heat above. My boots scraped against the stone floor as I crawled, my senses on high alert. The tunnel stretched on, twisting and turning, as though it had been designed to hide something or someone. My mind raced with possibilities, but none of them made sense. This wasn't just some forgotten relic buried by time. There was a purpose to this place, a reason it had been hidden away. The symbols etched into the walls glowed faintly as we moved deeper, and the further we went, the more I realized this wasn't just some treasure hunt. We had stumbled upon something much bigger, something that could change everything. The little girl, unafraid and full of wonder, didn't seem to understand the weight of what we had found. She paused, her tiny hand brushing against the wall. "Look, mister," she said, her voice echoing through the narrow passage. "There's a door here." I stopped behind her and looked. Sure enough, in the darkness ahead, there was a metal door, aged and rusted, but still standing strong. My heart skipped a beat. This wasn't a normal discovery. This was a vault that had been buried for who knew how long. The girl didn't hesitate. She pushed against the door with all her might. It creaked and groaned in protest, but eventually, it gave way. As the door swung open, a gust of cold air rushed past me, the the sound of creaking hinges filling the silence. We both stepped inside. The room beyond was vast, its high ceilings disappearing into shadow. Ancient machines, rusted and covered in dust, sat motionless, forgotten by time. But it wasn't the machines that grabbed my attention. It was what lay in the center of the room. A large stone pedestal, and on top of it, a large, ornate chest. It was covered in strange markings, much like the ones on the walls. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't just some old artifact. This chest was the key to everything. The girl stood beside me, her eyes wide with awe. "Is this the treasure?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure if this was treasure or something much darker. But the feeling in my gut told me we were on the verge of uncovering something that would shake the foundations of history. I stepped forward cautiously, reaching out to touch the chest. As my fingers brushed against the cold stone, a low hum vibrated through the air. It was faint at first, but it grew louder with each passing second, until the entire room seemed to vibrate with the sound. I looked down at the girl, who was now gripping my sleeve tightly. She seemed just as scared as I felt. "What's happening?" she whispered. "I don't know," I replied. "But I don't think we're supposed to be here." Just as I spoke, a loud cracking sound echoed through the room. The floor beneath our feet shifted slightly, as if something deep within the earth had awakened. The hum grew louder, and I realized, with a sickening feeling, that the chest wasn't just a relic. It was a trigger, a key that, once turned, would set off a chain of events we were not prepared for. I pulled the girl back as the ground beneath us trembled. "We need to get out of here," I said, my voice low but urgent. We turned to leave, but the tunnel we had entered from was gone. The walls had shifted, the entrance sealed by some unseen force. I turned back to the pedestal, my mind racing. The chest had done this. It had locked us in. We were trapped. The ground beneath us trembled again, and I could hear the faint sound of something large moving below us. I didn't know what it was, but I had a feeling it was not going to let us leave without a price. Panic surged through me, but I knew I had to stay calm. The girl was depending on me. I looked at her, her face pale with fear. "Stay close to me," I told her. "We're going to get out of here. We just have to figure out how." We moved through the room cautiously, trying to avoid making any noise. The sound of something heavy moving below us was growing louder, and I could feel the vibrations beneath my feet. Whatever was down there, it was coming, and it was coming for us. I could feel the pressure building, the vibrations beneath our feet growing stronger with each passing second. The ground trembled again, this time harder, sending a shiver down my spine. The sound of something massive shifting beneath us made my heart race, and I instinctively pulled the little girl closer. Her hand gripped my sleeve tightly, her tiny fingers trembling in fear. "What's happening, mister?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rumble of the ground. I didn't have an answer for her. The chest was still on the pedestal, glowing faintly, its power unmistakable. I could feel it in my bones, the energy coursing through the room. The walls seemed to be closing in, the air thick with a strange, otherworldly hum. I turned back to the chest, knowing that it had something to do with the strange occurrence. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I was in over my head. This wasn't just about a hidden treasure anymore. Something much larger was at play here. I looked around the room, searching for any way out. The tunnel behind us was sealed, the walls having shifted in response to whatever power had been triggered by the chest. The only thing left to do was move forward. "Stay close," I said to the girl, my voice firm despite the rising panic. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let her face it alone. We moved toward the far side of the room, careful to avoid disturbing the strange machines scattered around us. As we walked, the ground beneath us seemed to grow colder, and the hum from the chest grew louder, like a distant engine revving up. It was as if the room itself was alive, responding to whatever had been set in motion. The girl, brave as ever, continued to lead the way, her eyes wide with wonder and fear in equal measure. "Do you think we can find out what's inside?" she asked, her voice filled with curiosity despite the tension in the air. "I don't know," I replied, my mind racing. "But we have to figure it out, and fast." We reached the far wall, where another door stood, this one much larger than the first. It looked old, like the rest of the room, but there was a strange symbol engraved on it. a symbol that matched the markings on the chest. I could feel it calling to me, a force I couldn't ignore. I reached out and tried the handle, but it was locked tight. The hum from the chest intensified, as if urging me on. With a deep breath, I pulled out my knife and used the blade to pry at the door's seams. It didn't take long before the lock gave way with a loud click. The door swung open slowly, revealing a hidden chamber beyond. The air inside was colder, and the light from the chest seemed to flicker as it cast long shadows across the walls. Inside the chamber, a large pedestal stood, similar to the one in the main room. But this one held something far more disturbing. A large, glass-like sphere, glowing faintly with a deep, pulsing light. I approached cautiously, the feeling of dread growing stronger with each step. "What is it?" the girl asked, her voice filled with awe. "I don't know," I answered, my mind racing. "But I think it's the key to everything." I reached out to touch it, but just as my fingers brushed against the cool surface, the ground beneath us shook. Violently, the sphere began to glow brighter, and the hum from the chest grew deafening. "We need to get out of here," I said urgently, grabbing the girl's hand. But as I turned to leave, the walls around us started to shift again, the passage behind us closing up, and another sound filled the air, something far worse than the rumbling of the earth. It was a low growl, distant at first, but quickly growing louder, closer. Something was coming, and it was coming for us. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned back to the sphere, knowing we had only moments before whatever was lurking in the dark reached us. The room trembled again, and I realized that we had just uncovered something ancient, something far more dangerous than we could have ever imagined. I could feel the air thickening around us, the tension almost suffocating as the growl grew louder, closer, and more menacing. The walls of the chamber seemed to vibrate with each step of whatever was coming our way. The sphere on the pedestal continued to pulse, its light intensifying, casting long, ominous shadows across the stone floor. The girl, her eyes wide with fear, gripped my hand even tighter. "What is that noise?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I had no answer for her, only the sinking feeling that we had just unleashed something we couldn't control. "Stay close," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the panic surging within me. "Whatever happens, do not run." The growl echoed again, this time unmistakably closer. The sound was deep, guttural, like the growl of a predator, and it filled the room with a sense of impending doom. I turned toward the far end of the chamber, trying to see through the darkness, but all I could make out were moving shapes, too vague to identify, but definitely coming toward us. My instincts kicked in, telling me to act fast, but I was paralyzed for a moment, caught between the need to protect the girl and the overwhelming fear of what was coming. I quickly scanned the room, looking for any kind of exit, but the door we had come through had vanished. The walls had shifted again, sealing off any possible escape. Panic surged, but I forced myself to remain calm. There had to be a way out. I turned back to the pedestal, looking at the glowing sphere again. It was no longer just a strange artifact. It was now the key to whatever was happening. I had no idea how or why, but I knew we needed to figure it out, fast. "We need to stop it," I muttered under my breath. The girl looked up at me, her small face filled with confusion. "What do you mean, mister?" she asked, her innocent voice cutting through the growing tension. I paused, unsure how to explain what was happening. "That thing," I said, pointing to the sphere, "whatever it is, it's making all of this happen." The growl grew louder, now accompanied by a heavy thumping sound, like something large and powerful was moving closer. The vibrations underfoot intensified, and I could feel the temperature drop, the air turning colder with each passing second. "We have to destroy it," I said, more to myself than to the girl. Without thinking, I rushed toward the pedestal, my heart pounding in my chest. But just as I was about to touch the sphere, a flash of light erupted from it, blinding me for a moment. I stumbled backward, shielding my eyes. The light was so intense, it felt like it was searing through my very soul. When the light finally subsided, the growl was gone, replaced by an eerie silence that made my skin crawl. I stood frozen, staring at the sphere, which now appeared to be still. Too still. The air in the room felt heavy, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. And then, from the shadows, something moved. A figure emerged, tall and cloaked in darkness, its features hidden in the dim light. My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively moved to shield the girl behind me. The figure stepped forward, its movements deliberate and slow. "You shouldn't have touched it," a voice echoed, cold and ominous. The voice sent a chill down my spine. It was a voice that held power, but also an unsettling calmness, as if the figure knew something I didn't. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaky but firm. The figure didn't answer right away. Instead, it raised its hand, and with a simple motion, the ground beneath us shifted again, causing the room to tremble. "The sphere was never meant to be found," the figure said, its voice resonating with an unnatural authority. "You have released something that was meant to stay buried." I felt a surge of adrenaline as I stepped forward, my protective instincts taking over. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice hardening. "What is this place?" The figure's lips curled into something that almost resembled a smile. "This place," it said, "is the key to a secret buried for centuries. A secret that now belongs to you." I felt the weight of the words sink in. This wasn't just some random discovery. This was something much larger, something that had been waiting for the right person to uncover it. And now that we had, we were trapped in its power. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure stepped closer, its presence overwhelming. "Now, you have a choice," it said. "You can leave with the girl and forget this ever happened, or you can stay and learn the truth. But be warned, the truth comes at a cost." I glanced at the girl, who was now looking up at the figure with wide, innocent eyes. I didn't know what kind of cost the figure was talking about, but I knew we didn't have much time. Whatever was coming next, it was going to change everything. I stood there, frozen, as the figure's chilling words hung in the air. My heart pounded, and the cold sweat on my forehead was not just from the chilling atmosphere. The presence of this mysterious figure was suffocating, and the implications of its words weighed heavily on me. "You can leave with the girl and forget this ever happened, or you can stay and learn the truth. But be warned, the truth comes at a cost," the figure repeated, its voice cold as stone. I looked down at the little girl, her wide, trusting eyes locked on mine. She didn't understand the magnitude of what was happening, but I did. The truth was right in front of us, buried in this place, hidden for centuries. But what was the cost? I had no idea, but I couldn't walk away. The girl was in danger, and I'd already come this far. I had to stay. "We'll stay," I said, my voice steady, though inside I felt anything but calm. The figure tilted its head slightly, as if studying me. It seemed satisfied with my response. "Very well," it said, the smile never leaving its lips. "Then follow me." Without another word, the figure turned and began walking toward the far end of the room. Its footsteps were silent, as if the very ground beneath it refused to make a sound. I glanced at the girl, who was still holding onto my sleeve, and then I followed. The air in the chamber grew colder as we moved deeper into the heart of the room. The hum from the chest, still faint but persistent, vibrated through the walls, growing stronger as we approached. I felt like we were walking into the very heart of a storm, where everything was about to break loose. The figure led us to a large stone archway, its surface covered in intricate symbols. The symbols were the same ones that had marked the walls and the chest. They were familiar now, but still, I couldn't decipher their meaning. The figure stopped in front of the archway and turned to face us. "This is where the truth lies," it said, its voice eerily calm. "Behind this door is what you sought, but you must understand that what lies beyond cannot be unseen." I looked at the door. It was massive, its surface ancient and worn, but it was still intact. I could feel a strange pull toward it, like something deep inside me was calling me to open it. "What is behind that door?" I asked, unable to stop myself. "History," the figure said simply. "The history that was hidden to protect this world from what it could not yet comprehend. But now, the time has come for that history to be known. And you, Biker, are the one who will decide if it will be used for good or for destruction." The word sent a chill through me. The weight of it was almost too much to bear. I glanced at the girl again. She was still clinging to my side, unaware of the gravity of the situation. But I knew now that whatever was behind that door could change everything. I had to protect her, but I also had to know the truth. The figure stepped aside and gestured toward the door. "It is your choice," it said. "But remember, once you step through, there is no turning back." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on. Me. I had no choice. I had to open it. I nodded to the figure, and with one last glance at the girl, I stepped forward and placed my hand on the cold surface of the door. The moment my fingers made contact, the symbols on the door began to glow, faint at first, then brighter, until the entire surface was illuminated. The door groaned as it slowly began to open, revealing the darkness beyond. I could hear the faint sound of something moving, something ancient and powerful. My heart raced as I stepped into the threshold. The girl followed closely behind me, her small hand still gripping mine. As we stepped into the chamber beyond, I felt the temperature drop even further. The walls were lined with strange, glowing symbols, the same ones that had appeared on the chest and the door. And at the center of the room, a massive stone pedestal stood, much like the one in the previous chamber. But this pedestal held something far more significant. On it lay a large, ancient book, its cover made of some dark, weathered material, with symbols etched into its surface. I stepped closer, the girl by my side. The moment I reached for the book, the air seemed to grow heavier. A deep, unsettling rumble filled the room, and I felt a surge of energy course through me. The book seemed to pulse with power, and I knew then that this was the source of everything, the truth I had been seeking. But what would happen when I opened it? The answer was already beginning to reveal itself as the room shook again, the ground vibrating with a force that made me fear the worst. But it was too late to turn back now. The truth was in my hands, and nothing would ever be the same again. I reached for the book, my fingers trembling as they made contact with its cold, ancient cover. The room around me seemed to hold its breath, the pulsing symbols on the walls flickering in response to my touch. I could feel the weight of the book in my hands, not just in terms of its physical heaviness, but in the sheer power it seemed to radiate. The air was thick with anticipation, and I knew, deep down, that what I was about to uncover could change everything. I hesitated for only a moment before I opened it. The pages inside were yellowed with age, the ink faded but still legible. The symbols on the pages mirrored the ones on the walls, a language I had never seen before but somehow understood. As I flipped through the pages, the words seemed to come alive, almost as if they were speaking directly to me. The text spoke of ancient civilizations, forgotten wars, and a hidden history that had been buried for centuries. The deeper I read, the more I realized that this book contained the key to the mysteries we had uncovered in this chamber. But the deeper I went, the more I felt a growing unease. There was something hidden in the text, something that seemed to call to me in a way I couldn't explain. My fingers moved faster, the pages flipping on their own, as if the book were urging me forward. And then, I found it. A passage that seemed to pulse with energy, its words glowing faintly as I read them aloud. The one who awakens the vault shall be marked by fate. They will hold the key to a power greater than any before them. But the price of that power will be the destruction of all they hold dear. I felt a chill run down my spine as the words echoed in my mind. The girl beside me looked up, her eyes wide with confusion. "What does it mean?" she asked softly. I looked at her, my heart heavy with the weight of the words. "I don't know," I whispered. "But I think we've just unleashed something far bigger than we can handle." Just as I finished speaking, the ground beneath us trembled again. This time, the shaking was more violent, as if the very earth was reacting to the book's power. The walls around us began to crack, the symbols glowing brighter, as if they were coming to life. I could hear a low rumbling sound, like thunder, coming from deep within the earth. And then, from the darkness beyond, I saw it. Something moving toward us, something large and powerful. The ground shook again, and I instinctively pulled the girl closer to me. "We have to leave," I said, my voice urgent. But the girl shook her head. "We can't leave. The book said we're the ones who unlocked it. We have to face it." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. She was right. We couldn't just walk away now. We had awakened something, and now we had to deal with the consequences. I turned back to the book, my mind racing. The power it spoke of, was it a curse or a blessing? Could we control it, or was it already too late? The rumbling grew louder, and I knew we didn't have much time to figure it out. The darkness ahead seemed to be closing in, the air growing heavier with each passing second. "Stay close to me," I said, taking the girl's hand in mine. We had no choice now. We had to face whatever was coming, and we had to do it together. I turned to face the source of the rumbling. the darkness now almost swallowing us whole. The air was thick with an unnatural energy, and I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me, making it harder to breathe. And then, I saw it, a shadow moving in the distance, growing larger with each step. I couldn't make out what it was, but I knew it was coming for us. It was the thing the book had warned us about, the force that would destroy everything if we weren't careful. I clenched my fists, ready to face whatever was coming. There was no turning back now. Whatever lay ahead, we had to face it. Together. I could feel the tremor beneath my feet growing stronger, the rumbling sound filling the air as the dark shape in front of us loomed closer. I turned to the girl, her hand still tightly gripped in mine. Through the darkness, the ground continued to shake beneath us, and I could hear the low growl of whatever it was that was coming for us. The girl squeezed my hand, and I looked down at her. "Stay close," I whispered. She nodded, her small face set with resolve. Whatever this thing was, she wasn't afraid. Neither was I. We had come too far to turn back now. The shadow was almost upon us. I could see its eyes now, glowing with a pale, unnatural light, filled with an ancient rage. It was massive, its body outlined by the flickering light of the symbols around us. I could feel its power, its fury, and I knew it wasn't going to stop. It was here to reclaim what we had taken. The girl looked up at me again, her eyes wide, but she didn't speak. Instead, she just nodded, as if she understood the danger we were facing. She was braver than I ever gave her credit for. "We need to stop it," I said, my voice low and steady. I reached for my knife, the only weapon I had, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. This wasn't a battle of strength, it was something more. Something older, something darker. The creature stopped just a few feet in front of us. Its eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, I felt like it was staring into my very soul. It was as if it knew everything about me, my past, my sins, my regrets. And then, in a voice that was both ancient and terrifying, it spoke. "You have awakened me," it said, its voice deep and resonant. "And now you must face the consequences." The word sent a chill through me. I had no idea what it meant, but I knew it wasn't good. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The creature's lips curled into a twisted smile, showing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. "I want what was taken from me," it said. "I want the power that was locked away, and I want you to give it to me." I took a step back, my mind racing. The book, the symbols, the power. It all made sense now. This creature was tied to the book, to the very vault we had uncovered. It had been waiting for centuries to reclaim what it had lost. And now, we were the key. The girl stepped forward, her small body standing firm between me and the creature. "No," she said, her voice quiet but strong. "We won't give it to you." The creature growled, a sound that shook the walls, but the girl didn't back down. "You cannot stop me," the creature said, its voice filled with malice. "You have no idea what you are dealing with." But the girl, with a courage I could never have imagined, stepped even closer. "I know what you are," she said, "and I know we can stop you." The creature recoiled, its eyes narrowing in anger. It let out a low growl, but it didn't move. The tension in the air was unbearable, but in that moment, something changed. The symbols on the walls began to glow brighter, pulsing with the energy from the book. The ground beneath us trembled, and I could feel the power growing stronger, building up, waiting for something to happen. The girl reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object, a stone, glowing faintly with the same light that filled the room. I had no idea where she had gotten it from, but as soon as the creature saw it, its eyes widened in fear. "No," it hissed, its voice filled with panic. "You don't understand. That stone." But before it could finish, the girl raised her hand, the stone glowing brighter. The room filled with a blinding light, and for a moment, I thought the entire chamber would collapse. The creature screamed, its form dissolving into shadows as the light enveloped it. I couldn't see anything through the light, but I could feel the power of it, a force that pushed back against the creature, banishing it from the room. The ground stopped shaking. The hum from the book faded into silence. And just like that, it was over. The creature was gone. The girl stood in the center of the room, holding the glowing stone in her hand, her expression a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "We did it," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. I couldn't believe it. She had done it. We had done it. We had stopped whatever dark force had been unleashed by the book. But as I looked at her, I knew this was only the beginning. There were still questions, still mysteries, and now, more than ever, I realized that the truth we had uncovered was far more dangerous than I had ever imagined. I stood there, staring at the spot where the creature had been just moments before. The air felt different now, calmer, almost still. The blinding light that had filled the room was fading, and with it, the last remnants of the fear that had gripped me. The girl, still holding the glowing stone, looked at me with wide, tired eyes. She had done it. We had done it. The creature, the ancient force that had lurked in the darkness for so long, was gone. But as the silence settled around us, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. "Is it over?" the girl asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know how to answer her. Part of me wanted to say yes, that everything was finally over and we could go back to our lives. But I knew better. The power we had unleashed wasn't something that could be easily erased. The book, the vault, the creature, everything had been part of a much larger plan, a plan that had only just begun to reveal itself. I looked around the room, my mind racing. The stone the girl held was still glowing faintly, its light casting long shadows on the walls. The symbols, too, had stopped glowing, but there was something unsettling about the way they seemed to pulse, almost as if they were waiting for something. "We need to leave," I said, my voice rough. "We've done what we needed to do, but there's more to this. I can feel it." The girl nodded, her expression serious, and I could see the same understanding in her eyes that I had. Whatever was hidden in this place wasn't finished with us yet. We had stopped the creature, but it was only a piece of the puzzle. I turned to the pedestal where the book had been, still in awe of how much we had uncovered in such a short time. I wanted to take the book, to study it, but something told me that doing so would only lead to more questions. I could feel its power lingering in the room, just waiting for someone to tap into it again. "Do you think we can just leave?" the girl asked, as if reading my mind. "I don't know," I replied honestly, "but we have to try." I took one last look at the stone, the book, the vault, and the glowing symbols. The room had been built to protect something, and now that something had been unleashed. The energy was still in the air, like a storm waiting to break. "Let's go," I said, my voice steady, though my mind was anything but. Together, we turned and started to make our way back toward the archway where the figure had first led us. But as we moved, the room around us seemed to shift again. The walls creaked and groaned, the air growing colder, as if the very foundation of this place was beginning to collapse. My heart raced. The ground trembled beneath our feet, and I could hear the sound of something heavy moving in the distance. Something was coming. It wasn't over. We reached the archway, but as we stepped through it, the room seemed to close in behind us. The exit had disappeared, leaving us in total darkness. The girl gasped, her hand tightening around mine. "What's happening?" she whispered. I didn't know. The darkness was suffocating, and I could feel the walls closing in. The ground shifted beneath us again, sending us both stumbling forward. I caught the girl just in time, holding her tightly as the rumbling continued. It felt like the entire world was shaking, like the very earth beneath our feet was coming apart. But then, just as quickly as it had started, the shaking stopped. The room was still, and for a brief moment, everything was quiet. The air felt different now. Heavy, but not in the same way it had been before. I stood there, listening, waiting for something to happen. And then, from the darkness ahead, I heard it. A voice, low and guttural, like a whisper carried on the wind. "You cannot escape." My heart skipped a beat. The words were familiar, the same voice I had heard before. The creature was back, but this time, it was not in front of us. It was in the very walls, the very air we breathed. "What do you want?" I shouted into the darkness, my voice echoing around us. The voice didn't answer, but I could feel its presence growing stronger, wrapping itself around us. The girl squeezed my hand, her grip tight with fear. "I don't want to stay here," she said, her voice trembling. "We need to get out." "I know," I said, though I had no idea how we would. The voice seemed to laugh, a low, hollow sound that sent a chill down my spine. "There is no way out," it said. "You have awakened the power that was meant to remain hidden. Now, you will suffer the consequences." I knew what was coming. This was no longer just about stopping a creature or finding the truth. It was about survival. And whatever was coming next, It was going to test us in ways we could never have imagined. I could feel the room around us shift again, the very air seeming to tighten and close in. The voice, the same deep, guttural voice, echoed in my ears, its words chilling my bones. There is no way out. The voice wasn't just in the air, it was inside the walls, inside my mind. I could feel its presence everywhere, pressing against me, urging me to give in. My heart raced, but I couldn't afford to panic. Not now. Not with the girl beside me. She squeezed my hand tighter, her small fingers trembling in mine. "What do we do?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the oppressive silence. I didn't have an answer. The exit we had come through had vanished, and now we were trapped in this ever-shifting room, with no clear way out. The ground beneath us was solid, but it felt unstable, as if at any moment it would break apart. "We fight," I said, trying to sound confident, though doubt gnawed at me. The voice had been right about one thing. We had awakened something powerful and ancient. And now it seemed determined to claim what was its own. The walls around us seemed to pulse, the symbols glowing faintly as though alive, reacting to the presence of the force that now surrounded us. The air grew colder with each passing second, and I could feel the temperature dropping fast. It wasn't just the physical cold, it was a deep, soul-chilling cold, the kind that reaches into your very being and freezes you from the inside. "We need to figure out what's happening," I said, my voice low but urgent. "We need to take control before it takes us." The girl looked up at me, her eyes wide with fear. But there was a determination there, too. I had underestimated her before, but now I saw her for what she truly was. A brave little warrior, ready to face whatever came next. "I'm not scared," she said quietly, her voice firm. "We can do this." Her words surprised me, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. If she could be brave, so could I. But the darkness around us was growing stronger, and I could feel it pressing in, waiting for us to give in to fear. I glanced around the room, looking for something, anything, that could help us. The pedestal was still there, the stone chest glowing faintly in the center of the room. I reached out to it, my fingers brushing against the cool surface. As soon as I made contact, a surge of energy shot through me, like a shock to the system. The room seemed to vibrate in response, the symbols on the walls flickering, the ground beneath us shaking as though the very earth was waking up. The hum grew louder, the energy building until I thought my head might explode. "It's the chest," I said, my voice hoarse. "It's the key to everything." The girl looked at me, confused. "The chest?" she asked. "What's in it?" I didn't know. I had no idea what we had unleashed, but I knew that if we didn't figure it out soon, we wouldn't survive. "We have to open it," I said, my voice filled with urgency. "Whatever's inside, it's the only way to stop this." I moved toward the pedestal, the chest in the center of the room calling to me, urging me to unlock its secrets. As I stepped forward, the voice returned, louder this time, like a deep growl that rumbled through the walls. "You cannot open it," it warned. "The chest is not meant for you." But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I reached the chest and placed my hands on it, feeling the power beneath the surface. The symbols on the chest glowed brighter, and the hum grew louder, vibrating through my entire body. The girl stood behind me, watching with wide eyes, but I could see the same determination in her face that I had seen before. She was ready. I wasn't sure what would happen when I opened the chest, but I had no other choice. I took a deep breath and lifted the lid. A bright light erupted from within, blinding me for a moment. I felt a surge of energy so powerful that I was almost knocked back. The light slowly dimmed, revealing what lay inside. It wasn't gold or treasure. It was a stone, glowing with an eerie, unnatural light. The stone pulsed in my hands, as though it was alive, its energy radiating out in waves. I could feel its power, its immense, ancient power. And as I held it, I knew that this was what the voice had been warning us about. This was the source of everything. The creature, the vault, the symbols. This stone was the key to it all. I looked at the girl, my heart pounding in my chest. "We have to destroy it," I said, my voice tight with fear. "We can't let it fall into the wrong hands." The girl nodded, her expression serious. "How do we destroy it?" she asked. I didn't know, but I had to find a way, before the power of the stone consumed us both. And as I stared at the glowing stone, I knew that whatever happened next, our lives would never be the same. I could feel the power of the stone thrumming in my hands, its unnatural energy reverberating through my body. The light it emitted pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat, and as I held it, I felt the world around me bend, the very air growing heavier. It was as if the stone was alive, aware of its power and what it could do. My mind raced. Destroy it. That was the only option. But how? The voice from before, that haunting growl, echoed in my mind. You cannot destroy it. The stone is beyond your control. The words sent a shiver down my spine, but I couldn't afford to listen to it. We had come too far. The girl beside me, her small hand clutching my sleeve, looked up at me with wide eyes. She was scared, but there was something else there, something that reminded me of my own fearlessness when I was younger. What do we do now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, I admitted, my voice strained. But we can't let it fall into the wrong hands. We have to find a way to stop it, to destroy it. The girl nodded, her face filled with determination. Despite the terror that was creeping in, I could see the same resolve in her eyes that had gotten us this far. Whatever this stone was, whatever it represented, we couldn't let it control us. I turned to look at the chest one last time, my mind searching for any clue, any way to break the hold the stone had over us. The symbols that covered the walls still glowed faintly, their light flickering in time with the stone's pulse. I felt a sudden chill run through me as the words from the book I had read earlier came back to me. The one who awakens the vault shall be marked by fate. Was this it? Was this my fate? I didn't know, but the girl was still with me, and that was enough. We had a chance. We need to break its connection to the vault, I said, more to myself than to her. The book mentioned something about fate, about power, about control. We have to sever the connection between the stone and the vault. The girl's brow furrowed, and she looked at the stone in my hands. How do we do that? I looked around, desperate for an answer. But then, something caught my eye, a small crack in the wall, just to the left of the pedestal. The symbols near it flickered, as though they were reacting to the stone. I moved toward it, feeling the pull of the energy guiding me. As I approached, the crack widened slightly, revealing a hidden compartment. I reached out and pulled it open, revealing a small, intricately carved key. It was made of the same dark material as the stone, but it seemed to hum with a different energy, less aggressive, almost soothing. I felt an odd sense of calm wash over me as I held it in my hand. This was it, the key to destroying the stone, to breaking the power that had been unleashed. I looked at the girl. This is it, I said, my voice steadier now. This is the key to ending all of this. She stepped forward, her eyes wide with curiosity, but also trust. She was ready to help. We didn't have much time. The ground beneath us trembled again, the vibrations intensifying as the stone's power reached a crescendo. Whatever was coming, it was closing in on us. I inserted the key into the small opening in the stone, twisting it slowly. The moment I did, the room seemed to come alive. The symbols on the walls began to shift, moving and swirling like they had a life of their own. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, vibrating through my chest as the stone's power began to crackle and surge. The light from the stone flared, blinding me for a moment. I could feel it. This was the moment. This was the end. The girl gasped, stepping back slightly as the room seemed to shift around us. But then, just as suddenly as it had started, the light faded. The hum stopped. The power that had been building, that had been threatening to consume us, was gone. The stone was still in my hand, but it no longer pulsed with energy. It was silent now, cold to the touch. I looked at the girl, my heart pounding in my chest. We had done it. We had stopped it. The room was still, the energy gone. But I knew the danger wasn't over. The stone may have been silenced for now, but what about the vault? What about the history it contained? The truth that had been buried for so long? We had stopped the immediate threat, but the story was far from over. And as I stood there, holding the now dormant stone, I realized that our journey was only just beginning. I stood in the silence that followed, the weight of the stone in my hand still sending a chill through my veins. The room had returned to its stillness, but the air was heavy with the tension of what we had just done. We had stopped the power of the stone, but there was no relief in that. I could still feel it, deep in my bones, like an echo of something that wasn't finished, something that still wanted to be unleashed. The girl stood beside me, her face pale, but determined. She hadn't said much since we sealed the stone's power, but I could see in her eyes that she was processing everything we had just gone through. "What now?" she asked quietly, her voice carrying the weight of the question. I looked around the room again, the strange symbols on the walls now dim and unthreatening. The chest, once glowing with ancient energy, was now just an empty vessel. The vault was sealed, but the secrets it held were far from gone. "We don't know everything yet," I said, my voice low. "There's still more to uncover." The stone wasn't the end. It was just a piece of a much larger puzzle. The girl nodded, though she seemed to understand the gravity of my words more than I had expected. She wasn't just a scared child caught in the wrong place at the wrong time anymore. She was a part of this now, whether she liked it or not. "But how do we find the rest of it?" she asked, her brow furrowing as she gazed at the empty pedestal. I sighed and shook my head. "I don't know, but I'm not leaving here without answers." My words seemed to hang in the air for a moment, and I felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle over me. I was the one who had led us here, and I had promised to protect her, to see this through. We weren't done yet, no matter how much I wanted to walk away from the secrets this place held. The ground beneath us shifted slightly, a subtle reminder that this place was far from being dormant. "We need to find another way," I muttered, my mind racing. The stone, the symbols, the vault, it was all connected. But how? I had no idea. But I wasn't about to give up. I turned back to the girl. "Stay close," I said firmly. "I think we need to keep looking. There's got to be more to this place than what we've seen." She didn't argue, just followed me as I moved toward the far side of the chamber. The walls, once ominous and imposing, now seemed almost harmless. But I knew better. Nothing here was as it seemed. As I reached the far wall, I noticed something different. A faint outline in the stone, like a door that had been covered over with years of dust and time. I pressed my hand against the wall, feeling the cool surface beneath my palm. It was solid, but something about it felt wrong. The symbols around us flickered again, this time with a more subtle, almost gentle glow. My heart skipped a beat. I knew this feeling. It was the same sensation I had gotten when I touched the stone. Hey, pull, a call, something deeper than I could understand. The girl stepped beside me, her hand once again clutching mine. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I shook my head, unsure, but I felt it, the connection. I pressed harder against the wall, and with a sudden shift, the stone gave way, revealing a hidden doorway. It wasn't large, just enough for us to slip through. The glow from the symbols bathed the new opening in an eerie light, and I could feel the air change again, thick with the same power that had consumed this place before. "Let's go," I said, my voice resolute. The girl nodded, her grip tightening on my hand as we stepped through the doorway. Beyond it was a narrow, winding passageway, the walls lined with more symbols, more signs of the power that lay within. I could feel the stone's influence in the very air we breathed. It was drawing us in, pushing us toward the heart of the mystery. We moved forward, each step heavier than the last, but we couldn't turn back. Not now. We had uncovered too much to walk away. As we walked deeper into the passage, the air grew colder, and the light from the symbols seemed to flicker in and out, as though the room itself was fighting against us. But we pushed forward, the silence around us only adding to the tension. What was waiting for us? What secrets had been locked away for centuries? I didn't know, but I was about to find out. The passage finally opened into another chamber, larger than the last. At its center stood another pedestal, and on it, a stone, similar to the one I had just sealed. But this one was different. This one pulsed with energy, its light brighter, more intense. The girl stepped forward, her eyes wide with awe. "What is that?" she whispered. "I don't know," I replied, my voice tense with uncertainty. But I did know one thing. It was connected to everything we had found, and now it was calling to us. I took a step toward the pedestal, the weight of the stone in my hands still heavy. This was the final piece. The truth. And whatever lay ahead, we had no choice but to face it. Together. I stepped forward, my breath shallow, my heart pounding in my chest. The light from the pedestal's stone grew brighter, more intense, filling the room with an eerie glow. It was the same feeling I had gotten from the first stone, the one we had sealed away. But this was different. The energy coming from it was more powerful, more concentrated. The girl beside me watched with wide, curious eyes, but there was fear there too. I could see it in the way she clenched her fists, the way her body seemed to tense, as though she, too, could feel the immense power filling the chamber. "What is it?" she asked, her voice trembling with both awe and fear. I didn't know how to answer her. "I don't know," I said, my voice low, almost reverent. "But we're going to find out." I reached out, my hand trembling slightly as I extended it toward the stone. It felt like I was being pulled toward it, as if the stone itself was calling to me, urging me to touch it. When my fingers made contact with the surface, a shock ran through me, deeper than any physical sensation. It was as though the stone connected with something deep inside me, tapping into something ancient, something I couldn't understand. The energy surged, and I could feel the air around us begin to vibrate, almost as though it were alive. The symbols on the walls flashed to life again, their glowing intensity matching the pulse of the stone in my hand. The girl stepped back, her eyes wide with fear now. "What's happening?" she whispered, her voice laced with panic. "I don't know," I repeated, trying to focus, trying to block out the overwhelming force that threatened to take over. But I knew we couldn't stop now. The stone was the key, the final piece. "Stay close to me," I told her, my voice more steady than I felt. "We have to finish this." With a deep breath, I stepped closer to the pedestal. As I did, the ground beneath us seemed to tremble again. But this time, the vibrations felt different, stronger, more deliberate. The room shook violently, the symbols on the walls lighting up in chaotic patterns. It felt as though the very earth was responding to the power of the stone. A low, rumbling sound began, deep from the bowels of the earth, and it filled the room with a sense of urgency. "We have to stop it," the girl said, her voice rising with fear. I turned to look at her, my heart heavy with the weight of what I had to do. "We can't stop it," I said. "This is bigger than us. But we can control it. We have to." As I said those words, something inside me clicked. The energy from the stone, the power that had been so overwhelming before, seemed to settle, as though it were waiting for me to understand something. The answer was right there, buried within the stone's glow. The key wasn't to destroy it, it was to connect with it. The stone wasn't just a source of power, it was a link, a bridge between the past and the present, a tool for understanding what had been hidden for so long. I closed my eyes for a moment, focusing on the sensation, letting the energy of the stone flow through me, into me. As I did, memories, visions, began to flood my mind. I saw the vault, the ancient civilization that had created this place, and the secrets they had locked away, secrets that had been buried for centuries. The stone was a part of that, a key to unlocking the truth. "It's a connection," I murmured, as the pieces began to fall into place. "This stone, it connects us to everything that's been hidden. The vault, the power, it's all a part of this." The girl looked at me, her face filled with confusion and fear. "But what happens now?" she asked. "What do we do?" I opened my eyes and looked at her. The room had stopped shaking, the vibrations now faint, almost imperceptible. But the power still hung in the air, a constant reminder of what we had unlocked. "We use it," I said, my voice filled with resolve. "We use the stone to unlock the truth, to understand what they left behind." The girl nodded, though she was still uncertain. "But what if we can't control it?" she asked. I paused for a moment, considering her question. The truth was, I didn't know. We were standing on the edge of something vast, something powerful, and we had no idea what it would lead to. But I knew one thing, we couldn't back down now. "We'll control it," I said firmly. "We have to." I reached out again, feeling the power of the stone surge through me as I placed my hand on it once more. The room lit up with a brilliant, blinding light, and for a moment, I felt weightless, as though I were floating in time and space, untethered to the world around me. When the light faded, I found myself standing at the edge of a vast, open landscape. It was unlike anything I had ever seen, an ancient city, its towering structures made of stone and metal, stretching out before me. The air was thick with the smell of dust and old secrets. I turned to the girl, but she wasn't beside me anymore. Instead, she stood at a distance, looking out over the city with awe in her eyes. The stone pulsed in my hand, and I realized then that we had crossed into a new world, one where the answers we sought were waiting, but the cost of finding them might be far greater than we could imagine. I stood at the edge of the ancient city, the stone still pulsing in my hand, its power now familiar, almost comforting. The air around me was thick with dust, and the ruins of towering structures loomed in every direction, remnants of a civilization long gone, yet somehow still alive within the stone's energy. I glanced to my side, searching for the girl, but she was no longer beside me. I scanned the horizon, and then I saw her, standing a few paces away, staring at the vastness of the city with wide eyes. She looked so small against the backdrop of the crumbling empire, but there was something in her posture, a quiet strength, that made her seem larger than life. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice filled with awe. I didn't have an answer. I had no idea what we had stumbled upon, but I could feel it deep within me, that this place, this world, held the answers we had been searching for. "I don't know," I said, my voice rough. "But I think we've just found the truth." The stone in my hand pulsed again, and this time, it was different. It wasn't just power, it wasn't just energy, it was a connection, as though the stone was alive, communicating with me, urging me to move forward. "We need to go deeper," I said, though I wasn't sure what I meant. It was as if the stone had unlocked something within me, something that guided me toward the heart of the city. The girl looked at me, her brow furrowed in confusion, but she nodded. "Okay," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Where do we go?" I took a deep breath and started walking toward the center of the ruins. The stone in my hand seemed to pull me, guiding my steps, leading me towards something that I couldn't quite comprehend but knew was important. As we moved deeper into the city, I noticed that the walls of the buildings were covered in the same symbols we had seen before, the same symbols that had marked the vault and the chest. The stone's glow reflected off the walls, casting eerie shadows that seemed to shift with every step we took. It felt as though we were walking through a living nightmare, a place that held more secrets than we could possibly understand. "Do you feel that?" the girl asked, her voice soft but filled with an underlying unease. I nodded, though I didn't say anything. The air was growing heavier, the tension building with every step. Whatever was ahead, it wasn't going to be easy. We reached the center of the city, where an enormous stone structure stood. It was taller than anything else around it, its surface carved with intricate patterns and symbols, just like the ones we had seen on the walls. At its base was a large, circular opening, just big enough for us to fit through. The stone seemed to hum with energy, as if it were alive, waiting for us. The girl looked at me, her expression uncertain, but there was a glimmer of determination in her eyes. "This is it," I said, my voice barely audible over the growing hum. "This is what we've been searching for." I stepped forward, and as I did, the stone in my hand began to glow brighter. The walls around us seemed to pulse in time with its rhythm. I could feel it now, the connection between us, between the stone and this place. We had unlocked something ancient, something that had been hidden for centuries, and now we were about to face the consequences. I took a deep breath and stepped into the opening. The girl followed close behind, her footsteps echoing in the silence. The chamber inside was vast, stretching out into darkness. In the center, another pedestal stood, similar to the one we had seen before, and on it, a stone that shone with a light so bright it almost blinded me. This stone was different from the one in my hand. It was larger, its energy more intense, and I could feel its power pressing against me, trying to pull me in. "What do we do now?" the girl asked, her voice filled with fear. "We take it," I said, my voice firm despite the fear that gnawed at my insides. "We take the stone and finish what we started." But as I moved closer, something in the air shifted. The stone pulsed violently, sending a shock wave through the chamber, knocking us both back. The ground beneath us trembled, and I could hear a deep, rumbling sound from within the walls. The stone's power was growing, and I could feel it slipping beyond my control. The girl grabbed my arm, her grip tight with fear. "It's too much," she whispered. "We can't control it." I knew she was right, but it was too late to turn back. We had come this far. The stone was part of something much bigger, something that would change everything. We had to finish this. I took a step forward, ignoring the rumbling beneath me, and reached for the stone. As my fingers brushed against it, the light flared, and everything around us seemed to explode into brilliance. The room spun, and for a moment, I lost all sense of time and space. When the light faded, I found myself standing alone. The girl was gone. Panic surged through me. No, I shouted, spinning around. But there was no sign of her, no trace of the chamber we had been in. I was alone in the darkness, the stone still glowing in my hand. And I realized then, as the room around me shifted and changed, that this was no longer just about me. This was a test, one that I had to face alone. The stone was the key to everything. And now, I had to decide what to do with it. In this thrilling chapter of Hell Angels stories, a mysterious vault hidden deep within an ancient city holds secrets that could change everything. Follow the journey of a seasoned biker and a brave young girl as they uncover a power far beyond their control. There, discovery sets off a chain of events that leads them to face unimaginable dangers. As they venture deeper into the vault, they encounter the true power of the stone they have unearthed, and the battle for control over its immense energy begins. The biker must protect the girl and confront the dark forces that seek to harness the power for their own destruction. With the fate of the world at stake, they must navigate through a maze of danger, power, and secrets to uncover the truth. But as they unravel the mysteries of the vault, they are faced with an impossible choice: use the stone's power or destroy it. This is one of the most gripping Hell Angels stories, filled with heart-pounding action, twists, and an unexpected bond between the biker and the girl. Will they be able to stop the forces that have been awakened, or will they succumb to the darkness within the vault? Discover the fate of these unlikely heroes in this thrilling Hell Angels story, where every decision could mean the difference between life and death. Don't miss out on this epic tale of power, mystery, and survival in the world of Hell Angels stories.